Guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this great big wide world of sports. We are Ron Harris here, MD online editor. Had a little bit of time before I need to get into a meeting. Wanted to start off this Ask Ron by reiterating some stuff that I went over with Jose Raymond earlier this week in a No Way Jose video. The topic was, is there a safer way to use steroids? And I say safer because I'm fully recognizing there is no safe way to use steroids except under the direction of a physician for legitimate testosterone replacement therapy or for other uses, burn victims, the things that steroids are actually designed for by the pharmaceutical companies in the first place, which was not to make us big and jacked and strong and buff, none of that. So for those of you who use steroids, some things I'd like to try to really stress are there's no need for mega doses, especially for those of you who are just doing this to look good. You're not competing. You have no aspirations to compete. You just want to look really good. You don't need grams and grams. You don't need a gram of test, a gram of tren, a gram of Primabol in a week. You don't need, these 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 grams a week. Like, you're hearing these cycles that the pro bodybuilders use, the guys at that level, the Arnold Classic, the Olympia, and so many people emulate that, and I have no idea why. First of all, if most of these guys are actually using that much, and I'm not even going to get into that argument because people want to believe that everyone's using massive mega doses. These are the people who are doing this for a living, and they're taking a chance, and they know they're taking a chance because they're hoping there's a reward. There's hope. They're hoping they're going to win prize money. They're going to get big money endorsement contracts with supplement companies, clothing companies. They're hoping for a payoff. But for the average person, if you're just doing it, you want to look really good. You want to be bigger than normal, leaner than normal, have an exceptional physique that's better than the average guy or girl lifting around you. You don't need that. I mean, a gram total a week would be plenty. So that's one thing. Another thing is take time off. Do not stay on all the time. This blast and cruise thing that's in fashion now, years ago, people used to take time off. It wasn't even in anyone's head that, I need to stay on a certain amount all the time. No, it was usually people would take time, anywhere from 12 to 16, maybe even 20 weeks on drugs, but then they would go off drugs for an equal amount of time. There were people who only used drugs when they were starting to get ready for a contest, believe it or not. They didn't use them in the off season. Jose said he didn't use drugs in the off season throughout his competitive career. He gave his body a break. Now, he did compete a couple times a year, so his off season wasn't like 9 months or anything, but you get the point. Take time off, let your body heal up, recharge, get back to normal. You can do the PCT. It just speeds things up, speeds the recovery, and gets you feeling and looking a little more closer to normal quicker. But eventually, your body's going to do that on its own. I mean, I never did PCT. I eventually had to go on TRT or cruising because my body stopped producing testosterone. But for many years, I would go on steroids and then I would go off for a few months, let everything sort of, the first month or two was brutal, but things normalized after that because I was young. I was in my late 20s and through my 30s was the period I'm talking about. So looks like you guys already have some comments and questions. That's what Ask Ron Live is for. It's for you guys. So I want to see what your comments and questions are. What do we got, guys? Tren Primo. I mean, yeah, it's a good cycle, sure. Does that stack well? Yeah, I mean, it's a really good cycle if you don't want to hold any water, you don't want any puffiness. I would consider that a cutting cycle, more of like a contest prep cycle, even though in a contest prep cycle you'd be having a lot more drugs in the equation than that. But yeah, Tren and Primo for cutting, for like a summer stack. But the Tren is much stronger than you guys seem to think it is. You do not need nobody needs a gram of Tren a week. Nobody. 300-400 milligrams of Tren a week, plenty. Like 100, let's say 100 milligrams every other day of Tren. That's plenty. And there's not a lot of fake Tren because Tren is so cheap and easy to make. You don't really have to worry usually about it being underdosed. Big Ron, sup Ron, thank you guys. What about underdose of test, says Gordon? Yeah, that's the problem with all this underground stuff that we use. unless you're fortunate enough to have access to pharmaceutical grade gear that's actually produced by legitimate pharmaceutical companies who have very strict protocols and parameters, and everything's tested and pure and it dosed perfectly. For the rest of us, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think that contributes so much to why guys use heavy doses, is because they're just trying to cover their bases, because you don't know if you're injecting 500 milligrams of test. Is it 500 or is it 400 or 300 or 200? You know, one way to really see how it's affecting you, obviously, is just get your blood work done. When you look at your total and free testosterone levels, you'll know, is this stuff real? How potent is it? And, you know, I guess what you could do is, if you're getting a certain brand of underground gear, keep track of how much you're using, get your blood work done, see where your levels are at. And if your levels are where you like them, then that's a good dose for you, regardless of what it says on the bottle. And if you can adjust up or down accordingly. But then at least you would know, because with these underground companies, I do think they're consistent. So if they're consistently dosed properly or underdosed, I think that trend would continue. I know a lot of them, they dose correctly in the beginning with a brand, and then as time goes by, they'll underdose until people catch wind of it, stop buying that brand, and then the dealer just comes up with some other brand name. It's not hard to do. Grapeseed oil. Armin Nayeri wants to know, what's the use of grapeseed oil? I heard they mix it with some gear. It's used as an oil. You know, these are all these steroid powders. They have to be suspended in some type of oil to inject, and that's one of the ones that they use. Eat more? Yeah. Jules, I used more than a gram of Tren. The results weren't great, but at least I tried. Yeah, the problem with Tren and going high on doses like that is the side effects are horrific. Most people will have insomnia, and, you know, for those of you, I've suffered with insomnia a lot more when I was a younger man, especially I remember as a teenager. Man, I had some horrible insomnia. It sucks just lying in bed and being exhausted and you can't fall asleep. Tren gives you night sweats where I never had that problem, but you're sweating all the time. Tren Rage, it has a very bad reputation for, you know, if you're someone who things can set you off kind of easy, you know, someone cuts you off in traffic, or someone's rude to you in a restaurant or something, or in any capacity. Yeah, if you're on a good amount of Tren, you know, you have a short fuse. You can really lash out at people verbally, hopefully not physically, because that's, you know, in the US, that's a criminal charge or a lawsuit. If you can't hit people, you just can't. It's not like the old days. Let's see. Wild as the Taliban. Have you had gyno surgery? No. And you know what? I am very fortunate that I never had gyno, and I have never consistently used any type of AI, any aromatase inhibitors. I used to use Nolvadex and Clomid after cycles when I was trying to do a little PCT in my 30s, because I tried PCT a couple times because everyone else was doing it. But during cycles, I never used anything to control the aromatization. And my blood work, especially over the past few years, has shown I have very high estrogen levels. So on paper, I should have had gyno many times over the years. I never got it. You know, Greg Valentino speculated that if you have smaller nipples, which I do, they're pretty small, yeah, there's less receptors or something for the aromatization and that to happen. So I never had gyno, never needed surgery, but I feel for those who do, because I hear it's a very painful, there's a long recovery. You're not training for a couple months. You're not doing anything for upper body, at least a month. You know, it's too painful. Anavar, should I use it? Work good for me? I mean, Anavar works great for everybody. Yeah, it's if you're going to use an oral, which I don't encourage the use of orals, because they do have to go through your stomach and your liver. So they are more damaging to your liver. Obviously, everyone knows that. But Anavar is probably the safest one. But it will still do everything else that every other oral does if you use enough of it and use it for long enough. But Anavar, you know, people love it for cutting because there's no water retention. It has been shown to actually promote fat burning in the abdominal region. It's the only steroid I know of that has any proven results like that. So very, very popular drug among women. Pretty much women in every single division, down all the way down to bikini, use Anavar. Men will use it too. Men will use a little more. Women get by on very low doses, like a little dab will do you. Most women won't have to go over 20 milligrams a day of Anavar to see really good results. Men, probably more like 30, 40, 50. I hear 40, 50 is about the average I hear from most guys a day, and it's kind of expensive. KMCB, 61 years old. Any PED sup recommendations for slightly loose skin? Taking 300 tests, 200 Angelin, presently have good muscle. Unfortunately, if your skin is loose and you're not a very young person, that means the collagen's all gone and that skin's never going back. Unfortunately, there's all kinds of creams and crap, but really, if you have a lot of loose skin, like if you were very overweight and you lost the weight, congratulations for everyone that's done that. But you are left with a lot of loose skin, and they have what's called the skin surgery. If you watch all these shows where people like Biggest Loser, 600 Pound Life, especially Biggest Loser, because the person would end up losing 100, 200, 300 pounds. Then they have all these crazy flaps of loose skin all over the place, hanging down from their stomach, their hips, their arms, their back. It was horrible. So typically after they lost the weight, the final step would be doctor would come in and they would literally take off all that extra skin, sew it back together so it was tight. And yeah, that's the only real. There's no drug or cream or lotion that will get rid of any significant degree of loose skin. Younger people, if they lose a lot of weight, because they're still young and they still have all that collagen in their skin, for most of them, the skin will go back to normal or close to it. Let's see. Clen or Cardarine for better fat burning? I don't know much about Cardarine. I don't. I'm sorry. I've used Clen many times. Everybody I know that competes has used Clen and loves it. It works very, very well. You do have to sort of go a couple days on, a few days on, a couple days off. You can't take it every day or else it stops working pretty quickly. So a lot of people will do it like during the week, Monday through Friday, and then take Saturday and Sunday off. They'll do that for the whole course of like a contest prep. Breaking news, Nick Walker just passed away. That's terrible. Terrible joke. Terrible joke. Come on, guys. Oh, man. The Falcon. Yeah, don't joke about anybody dying, guys. That's not cool. I mean, we actually are having people die all the time. So, I was thinking last night about death. I think about death a lot, and it's scary. I don't want to die. The Falcon. How is 20 milligrams a day Dianabol and 100 milligrams test enanthate a week in low dose plus 50 milligrams a day clomiphene citrate Clomid? I don't know if you need the Clomid. If you feel like you need an AI, there's so much better options out there. Aromacin, Arimidex, was Existain that people use. 20 milligrams a day Dianabol is a good low dose. 20, 25. You shouldn't see too much water retention and things like that, and acne with 20 milligrams. 100 milligrams test enanthate a week. The problem I have with that is that's like on the low end of a TRT dose for a test. If you're going to use test for muscle building purposes, if you're going to abuse test, you might as well go beyond the TRT dose, because anytime you're injecting synthetic testosterone into your body anyway, you're shutting down your body's natural production of it. So you might as well just go, I'm not going to say go heavy or go home, nothing like that, but like 400 milligrams a week of tests, maybe 500, but 400 I think is a really good starting point for most people. And stay with the 20, 25 milligrams of D-ball a day. You would see really good results. Get on an aromatase inhibitor if you feel, you're aromatizing too much, your estrogen levels are getting too high. Gavin, safe age to start taking PEDs, says Gavin Lamphere. There's no safe age. It's not safe for my age, 52. It's not safe for an 18-year-old. It's not safe for anybody. I just don't like to see anyone really this is my personal thing. I don't like to see anyone under 21 start using them. I know it happens all the time. And, everyone makes their own decisions. It's your choice, your body. But I'd rather see you at least get most of your natural, that whole wave of testosterone and growth hormone that we all have as men through adolescence, and it starts going down in our 20s. I'd like to see people take advantage of it while it's there, because it's never going to be there again. You're never going to have those naturally high, that abundance of testosterone and growth hormone that you do in those physically formative years of adolescence, puberty. So I like to see people try to make their best gains, honestly, till about, if possible, to like 22, 23, 24. You still have very high testosterone in those years. But I would never want to see someone like, I've heard of guys like 14, 15. I would never want to see someone that young. Not only because physically you're not mature, but just emotionally and mentally, you're not capable of making, rational decisions that could affect the rest of your life, your health and longevity. At 14, 15, 16, you're not. That's why legally you can't sign a contract for anything. You can't be prosecuted as an adult for your crimes, because you don't know what the hell you're doing yet. You're not even legally responsible for yourself yet. You're not a legal adult. So, yeah. Shut up, macho. Don't say that stuff. Yeah, don't. It's not funny to say someone died, especially Nick Walker's like 27. Come on, man. It's not cool. The Falcon, again. Nick Walker and Dallas McCarver are similar in strength and size. Well, Nick's like 5'7", Dallas was 6'1". So, body weight, Nick's about 300 now. Dallas, at the time of his passing, I believe he was like 330 or 340, somewhere in that range. But both enormous, enormous young men. Dallas was only 26 when he passed in 2017. Love you, Ron. Thank you, Momen. Abdel Meged. Sandu. Top 5 health supplements while on roids. Cardarine is good for cholesterol. How about berberine? Thanks. That's a question for Dr. T, and I know he's answered it before, but you can ask him again. I take as many health supplements as I can. Geez, like I came in D3, ashwagandha. Oh my God, I should just make a list sometime. But pretty much everything. Every type of health supplement you can imagine. You should see all the pills and stuff I take all day, not steroid pills. Just all the things I take, because, extra vitamin C and, whatever I can take to mitigate the damage I'm doing with steroids, I do. And like for kidney, heart, liver. Yeah, that's a better question for Dr. T. Leave that on his, we put out a show yesterday morning, Ask Dr. Testosterone. And in the comments section, we do ask people, if you have questions for the doctor, leave them here. And those are the ones we answer on the show that we do next. We record every Monday morning. So if you can please put that question on there. It's 1 or 2 videos back on this channel, Ask Dr. Testosterone. He's much more well-versed in that area than I am. I take a ton of supplements, but I couldn't explain. What kind of watch am I wearing? Says Red Jr. This is a Tag Heuer Aqua Racer. I don't have a bunch of fancy watches. This is the only, I have this and like a couple, like a Movado. I don't have like an extensive watch collection. Okay, Jonesy, 250 milligrams Primo on TRT. You're on 175 grams, 175 tests a week. Your thoughts on TRT plus? Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm on. I'm on TRT plus, or someone else described it as TOT, testosterone optimization therapy, because it's beyond testosterone therapy. It is a cycle, but it's not quite extensive enough for me to call it a cycle. So something like that, if you added 250 milligrams Primo to your TRT, you would definitely see enhanced results. You'd get bigger, you'd look fuller. Primobolan is like the drug of choice for anyone in contest prep, male or female. It's just a really clean drug. You don't get any water retention on it. And it just, I remember I was watching a video, Trigilli a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how much he loved Primo. He says it was his, he wouldn't get ready for a show without it. He loved it. And he could tell looking at pictures, whether he was on it or not, it made that much of a difference in the fullness of the physique, of the muscles. Yeah, Gregory Elise from Canada. What's up, man? What's up, Ron? So with Flex coming in at the Olympia, who from the top 6 last year will not make it this year? Jeez, so you never know. You never know. Like I thought, you never know who's going to make it to the Olympia. Shit happens. Guys get injured. Guys get visa problems. Guys, things happen. They have heart, health issues. Things happen. They get knocked out of the Olympic. I don't know who he's going to knock out, and I wouldn't want to speculate, because then they're going to come at me. But I don't know. We'll see. It's still far away still. Alpha Mu Alpha Rho. Opinion on the quality of products from Empower Labs. Compounding. I've never heard of it. I'm sorry. I have no idea. Yeah, I wish I could be your consumer reports guy, but I'm not that great. Sandu Chorba. Turmeric. Yeah, I take that. Astrologus, CUQ10, yeah. D3 and K2, I take that. ZMB6, no. Omega-3, I take that. Yeah, fish oil, very good for the heart. D3 and K2, very good. COQ10. These are all, yeah. I mean, these things aren't super expensive. I encourage all of you, if you're using gear, take as many health supplements for your liver, your heart, your kidneys, Take it all, guys. Why wouldn't you? Arturo Avalos, hey Ron, just seen that workout you did with Kai and you looked awesome. Thanks. Yeah. That was kind of, in retrospect, I wish I had told the camera guy, Denley, cool dude, don't film me from this side. This arm sucks. I hate when people see this arm. That's when I tore the tricep. Can you still see the scar? I covered it up with a tattoo, but you can see the scar. Anyway, that tricep never... Well, when they put the tricep back, this was 2011, the surgeon told me, you had torn your tricep already before, like half of it was off and it was like retracted way up. And I said, oh, it's way up here. I said, that's why this tricep was always a little better anyway, but this one, now I realize, because when it tore long before that. So I had the full tear in 2011, and that's when the rest of it came off. But at some point, a few years before that, I had torn, I think, the long head back here, and it had retracted and healed because the surgeon said when we opened it up, the ends were like perfectly blunt and round. So this happened years ago. And I remember for so many years having really bad elbow pain, and I thought it was just tendonitis, and I put elbow sleeves on and all that. And I think it was torn then, and I just didn't know. I was training on a torn tricep for all that time, years. Shit happens. But yeah, thanks for the Kai video. I'm really happy I was able to get that. The thing about the Kai video that, to his credit, he kept his demeanor, even though he was very upset. Literally right before we started filming, like 3 minutes before we started filming, Cedric had just passed away and the news was just starting to break. And someone told Kai, I had known it and I didn't want to tell him until after, because, what's the point? Now he's going to be all bummed out. But somebody told him, it was Mental Entity, Q, what's his name? And yeah, he was very upset, but he gathered himself and we got through the workout. And he was, you would never have known. He's a trooper. Barbells, dumbbells, that's it. Can natural competitive bodybuilders do 12, 16-week preps on high carbs? Well, whether you're natural or not, we don't all have the same response to carbohydrates. Some people can eat a lot of carbs and stay lean and get lean. Other people really will need to cut way back on the carbs. I don't think it's a drug thing, whether you're on drugs or not. It also depends on how lean you are to start with. If you're pretty lean when you start your prep, like your abs are already in and you have some muscle separation, you'll be able to get away with eating more in general as the prep goes on. You won't ever have to go crazy low calories, 0 carb days. You won't have to do all that because you're already pretty lean. On the other hand, if you're way overweight when you start a 16-week prep, you have like 30, 40 pounds of fat to drop. You're probably going to have to go super low on carbs. You'll probably have to do carb cycling where some days you have like no carbs or like 20 carbs for the whole day. So I don't think I wouldn't say it's a natural thing or an enhanced thing. It's up to the individual. Scott Rosardi, what's up, Scott? I know your favorite training body parts twice a week. Well, it's twice every 8 days, technically. What is volume like and how many of those sets per exercise body part taken to failure? I don't really count the volume, but because I'm doing several body parts at once, that's how I do push-pull legs, although the order gets messed up. Like right now, it's pull, push, legs. Anyway, so that's like in one day, I'm training chest, shoulders, and triceps. So I'm not going to do 20 sets for chest, 20 sets for shoulders, 15 sets for triceps. That's just too much for one workout. I scale it back. It's probably, I'll do more for chest. It's probably 12 to 15 work sets for chest. Probably about the same for shoulders and for like triceps. 4 or 5, probably about 12 sets. I don't know how much that helps you. And back bicep. On the pull day, I do back. Traps I do every second or third work. I don't do traps every time. Lats, rear delts, and biceps. Back would obviously be the muscle group I put the most volume into on that day. And even I'd say back probably like 20 to 25 work sets. Same thing for the leg day. It's leg day with quads and hams and calves. I think altogether it ends up being about 25 work sets. But you know what? I don't count. I just try to get the whole workout done in about an hour, 15 minutes. If I'm going beyond that, I know I'm taking too long between sets. I'm adding on extra work that I don't really need. I don't think an hour to 15, hour and a half is about as long as you should be training with weights. If it's taking you longer than that, you're either doing way too much at once, too much volume, or you're resting way too long between sets. Bodybuilders don't need to rest a lot between sets. You should be able to recover enough strength to be able to go again from most exercises in about a minute and a half. Maybe a tough set of squats or deadlifts, you'll need a couple minutes, but everything else, you should keep the pace moving. As soon as your breathing is back to normal, you should be about ready to go again. You shouldn't be resting, walking around and around, wasting time and talking to people, all that. Big John, hey Ron, thank you for what you do. How do you feel about a cruise for 8 to 10 weeks between cycles of 200 mg test sip, 50 mg trend to keep gains? Just use test sip, Deca, and Anavar. If you're going to cruise, I'd rather see you just cruise on test. Because if you're cruising on test and trend, now you're on another cycle. I understand it's a low dose of trend. You're doing 50 milligrams of trend. You mean for the whole week you're only going to do 20 milligrams? Or 50 milligrams? Yeah, I'd rather see you just do the cycle. Do whatever you can do for the cycle. Then when you're cruising, just try to cruise on a low dose of test, like 200 milligrams. Let everything get back to the more, I should say, the less time you give your body to try to like readjust and recover from these cycles, you're going to get closer and closer to the point where you're going to have to be on at least TRT all the time. Your body's just going to not respond anymore. And the more drugs you do and the longer you stay on them, you will have to up the doses over time to see the same results. And you don't want that either, because now you're going to be on more and more and more gear, doing more and more damage, spending more money, doing more shots. It's a vicious cycle. Momen Abdel Meged. I'm 35 years old. I want to start AS cycle. I'd run test sip for 10 weeks, periodizing the dose. PCT, I don't, because I don't do PCT and I never really was into it that much. You can look up PCT. There's plenty of stuff online to find, but I wouldn't periodize the dose. If you're going to stay on a cycle for 10 weeks, just start off with whatever amount you're going to use. If you're going to use 400 a week or whatever, 500, 600, 700, whatever amount you're going to use, just do that every week for 10 weeks. When you're done with the cycle, because testosterone, the longer esters like the cypionate and anthate, they do have these half-lives, so you're going to naturally taper down anyway. So let's say you take your last shot on week 10. You still have all this test that's been accumulating in your system. You're going to be on test probably for a good 2 to 3 weeks before it's really mostly out of your system. So there's no need to go taper up the doses, taper down. The body's going to do that by its own. It's going to take a little while for the test when you start the cycle to really get circulating and start working. And then when you're done, it's going to take a while for it to dissipate. So there's no need to do that. From Italy, Giacomo Tinti saying hi from Italy. Buongiorno, buongiorno. Grazie. Big John, I'm 47 on TRT. Does that change your opinion at all? No. I mean, I don't think steroids work that differently based on your age. The same cycle that works for an 18-year-old will work for a 48-year-old. 18-year-old just has a younger, more resilient body, so he's probably able to train a little harder. His joints are nice and fresh. And the longer you stay on steroids, the harder it is to get results from steroids. Just like lifting in general. The more gains you make in size and strength over time, the harder it will be to continue making gains. So if you started out lifting at 120 pounds, say a few years later, you're 220 pounds. Okay, maybe it's going to take you another 5 years to get from 220 to 230. And then after that, it might take you another 5 years to get from 230 to 235. It does get to that point where the returns are minimal after. It's harder and harder. Just a fact of life. Otherwise, like I said, I say this all the time. Otherwise, we'd have guys walking around at 1,000 pounds ripped, right, with 35-inch arms and 50-inch quads. We don't see that because there's a limit. There's an upper limit to everything. There's an upper limit to, how big a human being can get. We do have some of these people pushing the limits, like that Ilya Golem, the Russian dude down in Florida. Florida, right? He's going to try to get to 400 pounds, and God help him. God love him. I interviewed him. He seemed like a cool dude. I hope he knows what he's doing, because that doesn't sound safe to me at all. 400 pounds. Good Lord. Lee Santos, what's up from Brazil? Yeah, you had a good show over the weekend. Arnold Classic Brazil. I'm looking forward to Indy Pro. I don't know if any of you guys are going to be going to the Indy Pro. That is happening in Indianapolis, Indiana. Yeah, a week from Saturday. I found out only recently. I didn't look into it, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see in the pro competition, which that's what we're covering, MD, there's just 3 divisions: men's open bodybuilding, 212 bodybuilding, women's bodybuilding. I love it. I love it because I'm old, and I started out when there was only bodybuilding, and I respect all the divisions, guys, but sitting there for hours and hours, and you have to cover every division: bikini, wellness, men's physique, women's physique, figure, it can be a grind. And, this is just, it was a pleasant surprise to see. And I remember the show was run so well last year. Dave Bowers Productions, Dave Bowers from Indiana, promoter, former U.S. Marine. His whole family helps out with the show. They treat everyone so well. The athletes, the media, the fans, just everything's run smoothly. I love that show. So Hector Mendoza, will be heading to Indiana next weekend. Looking forward to that. And then the weekend after that is New York Pro, which is for the first time since 2019, it's back in the right area. It's not in New York. It's in Teaneck, New Jersey, which is just over the George Washington Bridge from New York. But I love it. I can drive down there, take my own car. It's plenty of parking. It's at everything is going to be in the Marriott Glen Point at Teaneck, New Jersey, which I actually competed. The last time I competed was 2013. I did that Team U there, and then a couple weeks later I was in Pittsburgh. But nice venue. Everything's under one roof. You don't have to go anywhere. If you want to go somewhere, there's a pretty big Galleria Mall. It's like a 5-minute drive away. It's a nice location. Patty Gold Clayhar, Team Clayhar. This is the wife of Phil Clayhar, the Jamaican tank. One of the best, I'd say, new guys. He's been around for a few years, but he's been doing really well. Patty, hey Ron, we'll be watching it. Looks like it'll be a good one. Phil was going to do it, but decided to pass on it this year. Yeah, it's can't do every show. You guys will be missed. But man, Phil had a very nice showing at the Boston Pro. Looked phenomenal. Hopefully you guys will be at Tampa. Can do Tampa again, I hope. You always look great at Tampa. Rosario Di Maio, my favorite podcast with the man Ron, Big MD, ciao from Palermo, Sicily. Yeah, I like how Sicilians always make the distinction. We're not from Italy, we're from Sicily, which technically Sicily's part of Italy, right? But it's like a cool thing to say you're Sicilian, because that's the Italy's the big boot, and then Sicily's like the big ball off the coast. But that's where the Cosa Nostra comes from, and I like the Sicilian look. They're the women, very dark, raven hair, dark eyes. They have those classic Latin features, the Mediterranean features. Yeah. Patty, we will be in Orlando. Okay. And of course, Tampa. Yeah, I don't think I'll be in Orlando, but definitely Tampa. Haven't missed a Tampa Pro since I took this job in January 2017. Tim Gardner Productions. Tim puts on a great show. He puts on a big amateur show with that. There's the pro show with all divisions and masters divisions for almost all maybe all the divisions. It's a few days. It takes a couple days to get through all this, but he keeps it moving. Giacomo Tinti, take a look at Andrea Presti's condition for New York Pro. Yeah, Andrea is very good. Sharp and full, way better than Mr. O version. Yeah, Andrea won Big Man Weekend Pro Show in Portugal last year. Interviewed him and his coach. I don't think actually, no, I didn't interview his coach. I think it's Mauro Sassi, right? Team Stone. Yeah, Andrea is very good. It's just, sometimes he goes in these shows like the Olympia and it's tough to get a look. But he made his country proud. Right now he's the best bodybuilder from Italy, Andrea Presti. Yeah, not to be confused with the other Andrea. What's the other one? There's two of them. Muzzi. Yeah, another good one. Lee Santos, Miguel Chain said that you have a long journey as a bodybuilding journalist. What motivates you to be working in this medium for so long? I love the sport. I love training. I don't think I could have done it this long. I would have quit long ago if I wasn't both a bodybuilder myself and lived the lifestyle like all these guys. And I competed for 24 years. And I'm still a big fan of the sport. I still follow it. I still get excited about the big shows coming up and who's going to do well. And, when the guys come out, it's like, wow, so-and-so. The anticipation of it all. And watching guys improve year after year. And I love surprises. I love when somebody was not on my radar, someone I wasn't even thinking about as being a favorite for a show, just shows up looking spectacular and owns it. I mean, it's a cool sport. I love the sport. I know it's come under fire a lot recently because we have had a lot of health problems and deaths. But yeah, I couldn't write all these articles and do all these podcasts, interviews and stuff if I didn't still have the same interest level I did when I was a kid. And, I started training in 1983, competed from 1989 to 2013, started working full-time in this business in January 1991 for the American Sports Network, to do the American Muscle Show on ESPN. Been writing for the magazine since 1992. Ironman magazine was the first magazine I wrote for. So yeah, it's the passion that I have for the sport and for just the lifestyle. I love it. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. But Miguel Chain, props to him, man. He is by far the premier bodybuilding journalist in South America. And he's giving a voice to a lot of the athletes, especially now with Brazil coming on so strong on the pro level. He's in a great spot to help these people get even more recognition because they deserve it. That country's got some phenomenal genetics. And, now that they have the opportunity to turn pro, which they didn't have for many years under the old IFBB organization. We're seeing so much talent that we never would have even seen before. Nenad Nikolovic, do you have a problem with lack of motivation after a cycle? I'm always on a cycle, I'll be honest with you. So I'm always on this low dose cycle. It's a lower dose than what most people use. It's higher than TRT. So like every fourth day now, I've been doing 200 milligrams of tests and 200 milligrams of equipoise. I rotate from EQ to equipoise, from DECA to equipoise. And I've been doing 50 milligrams of Proviron. I started doing that again lately. But in the old days, of course, after a cycle, of course, because, you're losing strength, you're losing size, that fullness to the muscle. Of course, you're losing energy. Steroids, they're so mentally addicting because you look and feel so differently on them that when you go off them, it's very hard to, you don't get the same results. You won't look the same. You won't be lifting the same weights. You won't get the same crazy pumps. You won't have the same crazy sex drive, sense of well-being that some steroids give you. So yeah, that's why I say to people, I'm just going to try them. I'm just going to do one cycle. Like, no, you're not. Once you feel for yourself, what they do for you, you're not going to want to stop. Trust me. You're going to be on them probably for the rest of your life, or until you have like a health problem and you have to stop. We can see this in your eyes. Haha, thanks, Lee. Obrigado. Could you make a video telling your story, not only the athletes? Well, Lee, I did one, I did two videos called My First Year on Steroids, Part 1 and 2, probably about 2 or 3 months ago. I think that told a lot of my origin story, but yeah. Barbells, dumbbells. That's it. Just want to say you and Jose Raymond need to continue covering the shows. You guys have awesome insight, clearly know your stuff. Yeah, good news. Jose is going to be helping me with the MD coverage at New York Pro. I love having him doing the wrap-ups with me. Milos is excellent too, of course. I love both of them. But Jose has such a good eye for physiques. You know, he'll notice things that like nobody else would notice, both for the good and the bad. You know, he's a judge. He judges a lot of local shows. He'll probably be moving up to national level judge fairly soon. I think he's got to do a couple test shows, but he's able to really break down the physiques and calls it like he sees it. Even if somebody's a friend of his, he'll give them a very honest critique. Doesn't worry about hurting feelings because it's not personal. We're just talking about physiques. Patty Gold, are you doing the Chicago Pro coverage? Yes. So right now, the shows that I know I'm going to, because I go to all of them. So Indy Pro, look at this old-fashioned calendar I have. New York Pro, don't think I'm going to Toronto or Puerto Rico. Orlando, maybe. Chicago, definitely. Tampa, definitely. Texas, not sure, maybe. And then I don't see anything else. Maybe Legion Sports. Where is that, November? Yeah, so definitely those shows. Lee Santos, is Charles Griffin at his best in this preparation? I don't remember which show he's going to compete in. Yeah, he's doing the Indy Pro. We haven't seen him since last year's Tampa Pro. He says he was third, but I thought Max Charles was third. I don't know. I'm not even sure now. I'd have to go look at the results. But if you look at Charles Griffin _IFBB Pro on his Instagram, he's looking nuts. His shoulders, his back, his chest, legs have come up. They're still not as crazy freaky as some things like his arms and his back, but he's done a lot. I would not be surprised if he wins, but Justin Rodriguez is coming for that show too, and obviously Justin is no slouch. Justin, third at the Arnold, second in Boston. We have some other people, of course. We're doing a preview. I'll do a preview next week. I already need a drink. Doing a preview next week with Giles Thomas of the Indy Pro. So I'll find out. He sent me a picture of Peter Klank here, who I believe is from Hungary. And this guy's looking crazy too. So look, we got also Blessing Awobidu is doing that show. Brent Swanson making his pro debut. So it's going to be a good show. And the 212, I'm also looking forward. That's going to be Yuman Eaton. Jose's guy's looking good. I'm sure there's a few heavy hitters I don't even know about right now. Wow, yeah. But Charles Griffin, check out his Instagram. He's got some crazy pictures and videos from the last week or two. He's coached by Matt Jansen. Matt knows how to dial people in, obviously. Charles is about he's like 5'9", and you can see from his face and everything else, he's already in shape. He's right where he needs to be. He's like 264. Thick guy. Charles was third behind Phil at Tampa. 221. Okay, so yeah, he was third. So Max was fourth. Max Charles was fourth. Thank you. So Charles Griffin was third. Yeah, he looked phenomenal at Tampa. And I actually had an interview with him yesterday. It's going to be going up on this channel Monday morning to kick off the week of coverage for Indy Pro. And I asked him, why didn't you keep going? Why didn't, Texas Pro was a week later. You had a few other shows that were fairly close in proximity after Tampa. And I guess, based on the judges' feedback and what they told me they wanted to see, they said there was no point in competing again until they had brought a better package. And he said there was nothing he could do in a week or two. He also doesn't like to do back-to-back. He doesn't feel like his body recovers enough right after a show to bounce right back into trying to peak for the very next weekend, which I could understand. Some people seem to be able to do it very well. Some people get better and better. Like last year from Tampa to Texas, both Phil Clahar and Ian Valier got much better. They were both dialed in even better at the Texas Pro. It was crazy. I didn't even realize it until I saw the high-res images because the webcast was good, but once I saw the high-resolution pictures, I was like, geez, these guys were freaking shredded. Anyway, I do have my I wish it was a weekly content meeting for MD coming up in a few minutes, so I'm going to let you guys go. I appreciate you guys watching so much. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell thing in the corner so you know when we have new videos. Leave some comments, guys. I get to all the comments. I answer them all. I appreciate it all. Appreciate you guys watching. And one last thing. Thank you, Lee. Thank you for watching. Obrigado. All right. See you.